A boy asks his father how to measure the value of a life. The father hands him an ordinary stone and tells him to find its price without saying a word. At a local market, the boy holds up 2 fingers. A woman offers him 200 rupees. To her, it's just a rock for her garden. This diagram shows what happens when the object moves. In a museum, it's 20,000 rupees. In a gem store, 200,000. The stone's weight, color, and composition never changed. Its value was determined entirely by where it was placed. Many people live as if they are stuck in that 200 rupee market. They are surrounded by unsupportive environments that treat their potential as a common commodity. The father's lesson reveals that worth is tied to your choice of environment. Positioning yourself in the right context allows your value to be recognized at its true scale. At 16, Deepak Daiya lived as a real-world version of the stone in the wrong market. He was confined to a single 10 by 10 room that served as a kitchen, bedroom, and workspace for his entire family. His environment was actively hostile to his goals. His parents, fearing he would ruin his education, sold his smartphone, the only tool he had to create content. Daiya responded by borrowing tiny amounts of money from several friends until he had 200 rupees. He used it to buy a cheap, low-quality microphone. Starting in a low-value environment forces a choice. You can accept the market's low assessment of you, or you can find a way to manually generate your own micro-value. A simple fable about 2 friends on a beach explains the mechanics of building that value. Both spend the day collecting conch shells to sell in town. The first friend searches only for one massive, life-changing shell. He ignores and discards every small opportunity he finds, ending the day with nothing. The second friend consistently collects every small shell he sees. While they look insignificant individually, they fill his bag and result in a 3,000 rupee payout. Searching for one massive breakthrough often yields 0. Collecting every small shell leads to a consistent and growing return. Daiya applied this principle by recording his videos inside a sweltering tin shed. He didn't wait for a studio. He worked where he was. He fought a phone battery that drained almost as fast as it charged, capturing audio in extreme heat while his peers were at school or playing games. On September 6th, he made a mistake. He accidentally uploaded an unpolished, incorrect voice file that he had recorded during one of those exhausting sessions. This line graph shows his channel's history. It stays agonizingly flat through months of work. But at the moment of that mistake, the line hockey sticks. He hit 14,000 views in a day, which soon became millions. His viral moment was the outcome of relentlessly putting small conchs into the system. By repeatedly uploading, he increased his chances until the odds finally tipped in his favor. At 19, Daiya's reality has completely shifted. He moved out of the 10 by 10 room to build a 60 lakh studio and now manages a full production team. His family, who once sold his phone to protect his future, now recognizes the massive enterprise he built from that initial 200 rupee investment. The gem store from the father's lesson is a psychological state engineered through specific choices. It requires looking past the physical limits of where you are currently standing. Your valuation depends on your willingness to endure the heat of the shed. It is set by the quality of work you produce when nobody is watching. It takes the discipline to keep collecting small shells every day, while others are paralyzed, waiting for a miracle that may never come. You influence your own market rate through constant micro efforts. Eventually, the world has no choice but to acknowledge the value you have spent years accumulating. We are experts at waiting. We tell ourselves we will start writing that book when we have more free time, or launch that business when we have the perfect gear. We stand completely still, convinced that holding out for flawless conditions is a valid strategy. There is an old story about 2 friends walking along a beach looking for conch shells to sell. One friend decides he only wants the massive shells. He scours the sand, tossing aside every small shell he finds, obsessed with the massive payoff he is sure is just ahead. The other friend simply picks up every little shell he passes. By sundown, the first friend is empty-handed. The second friend walks away with a massive haul of small shells, which he sells for 3,000 rupees. The one who held out for the giant windfall got nothing. We do this exact same thing with our goals. We demand perfect conditions before taking action, but that demand is actually a psychological shield. It protects us from the very real discomfort of starting today with whatever flawed tools we have in front of us. If anyone had a valid reason to use that shield, it was a 16-year-old kid named Deepak Daiya. In 2018, Deepak lived in Agar Malwa, a small town in the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. There was no private office or quiet study space here. His entire family slept, ate, and lived their daily lives inside a single 10-by-10 room. His parents were tailors, working long hours at their sewing machines just to keep the family afloat. In this environment, the idea of a teenager launching a lucrative digital career sounded ridiculous. This starting line offered every valid reason to give up before even trying. No money, no space, no technical background. Yet Deepak decided to take absolute ownership of his trajectory, stripping away every excuse he could have easily claimed. The most common reason people delay creating anything online is the cost of equipment. You need a high-end camera and a crisp microphone, right? Deepak had zero capital, so he borrowed 10 rupees from one friend, 20 from another, and 50 from a third. He crowdsourced exactly 200 rupees, about $2.50, just to buy a cheap, low-grade microphone. For a camera, he relied on an aging Samsung smartphone that he had to share with his sister. The phone's battery was severely degraded. Charging it for 4 straight hours yielded a maximum of 40 minutes of unpredictable recording time. If he missed his window or his sister needed the device, the shoot was over. He didn't wait to save up for professional gear. He collected the small shells he had right in front of him. By embracing the terrible battery and the borrowed mic, he proved that executing an idea is infinitely more valuable than the shiny tools used to capture it. The next barrier was the physical space. It is incredibly difficult to record clear audio when your family lives in a single crowded room. To find quiet, Deepak climbed to a tiny storage space directly beneath a tin roof. During the peak Indian summer months of April and May, that space acted like a literal oven. To prevent background noise from ruining his cheap microphone's audio, he switched off every fan. He recorded his voiceovers in suffocating heat, dripping with sweat, pushing through pure physical exhaustion. After every grueling session, completely drenched, he would walk over to a mirror. He told himself that the sweat he was pouring out in that makeshift oven was exactly what would buy him a real studio down the line. A hostile environment does not have to be a dead end. When you strip away the option to complain, you can use that physical discomfort as a psychological training ground to forge relentless discipline. Then comes the hardest excuse to ignore, the lack of support from the people around you. Deepak's peers thought his channel was a joke. At a neighborhood party, some classmates intentionally connected his low-quality videos to a DJ's Bluetooth speaker, blasting them loudly just to humiliate him in public. The resistance extended to his school. Teachers would force him to stand up in class, openly mocking his ambitions and telling him to abandon this foolish hobby for his standard exam prep. The pressure reached its peak on the final day of his 11th grade exams. His parents, genuinely terrified that this digital obsession would destroy his future, took his shared recording phone and sold it to a stranger. His entire means of production was gone. But rather than throwing a tantrum or accepting defeat, Deepak tracked the buyer down, retrieved the phone before the sale was final, and went right back to work. He never blamed his parents. He recognized their sabotage was rooted in a deep fear for his survival. True ownership means absorbing the resistance of the people you love without adopting the role of a victim. By August 2019, despite months of sweating under the tin roof and enduring public mockery, his channel flatlined. He was scraping by with maybe 15 or 20 new subscribers a day. The mental toll was staggering. This chart shows exactly how compounding effort works. You see a long, agonizingly flat line right up until September 6th. Suddenly, one video hit 14,000 views. The algorithm caught on, and within weeks, it rocketed past 1 million. The metrics finally translated into reality. He bought his own smartphone. He received his first YouTube check and handed his parents physical proof that his vision was real. A massive win rarely arrives by pure chance. It is engineered by stacking hundreds of frustrating, microscopic efforts together until the math finally ticks in your favor. There's another story Deepak shares. A boy asks his father what his life is worth. The father hands him a stone. At a loud street market, vendors offer 200 rupees for it. But when the boy takes that stone to a master gemologist, it is valued at 200,000 rupees. Deepak's initial environment, his cramped room, his skeptical teachers, his dying smartphone, all priced his potential at a very low rate, but he refused to accept that market value. By taking total responsibility for his own output, he engineered an entirely new environment. By age 19, he had built a 70 lakh rupee office and hired a full-time staff. We all have a choice. You can construct a brilliant, airtight list of excuses for why you haven't started, or you can construct your dream. You cannot do both. Stop waiting for the flawless setup and start picking up the small shells today. Most of us know the feeling of staring at an impossible wall. You look at the scale of your ambitions, compare them to the reality of your current obstacles, and a quiet paralysis sets in. We look at global figures like Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, a man who commanded the Indian Armed Forces and served as president, and we assume his path was predetermined by destiny. But before the accolades, he was a young man crying by a river in Rishikesh. He had just ranked 9th for a military pilot program that only accepted the top 8 candidates. His dream of flying was dead. A young Bill Gates experienced a similar pattern. He failed several subjects in his university exams, while his friends passed every single one. Today, those friends work as engineers for Microsoft, and he owns the company. Even Muhammad Ali, the most celebrated boxer in history, admitted he hated every single minute of his training. Dr. Kalam eventually commanded the very forces that rejected him, and Bill Gates' classmates ended up working for him. These outcomes weren't products of luck. These individuals moved through their failures using 3 specific behaviors. They managed their focus, they confronted their fears, and they trusted the math of consistent effort. This timeline represents Carnegie's day-tight compartments. If you visualize washing every dirty dish you'll generate over 18 years at once, the mental load becomes an impossible mountain. By isolating your focus to the single plate today, the weight of 2 decades disappears. The same logic applies to the past. Buddha likened an anxious mind to a muddy pond. If you try to clean the water with your hands, you only stir up more dirt. The only way to clear it is to do nothing and let the settlement settle. Detaching from past regrets and future hypothetical disasters is required for progress. You cannot take action if your attention is scattered across time. The second behavior requires a counterintuitive approach to fear. When Swami Vivekananda was chased by aggressive monkeys, he discovered that running away only made them pursue him faster. This shows the movement of anxiety. The dot is your focus, the red rings the threat. The faster you retreat, the faster the threat expands. But the moment you turn toward it, fear collapses. Vivekananda screamed at the monkeys, and they scattered. We see this exact mechanism in the story of Elmer Thomas. He was a thin, self-conscious teenager who avoided people for weeks at a time. To cure his anxiety, he didn't hide. He forced himself into a public speaking contest, won it, and eventually became a United States Senator. Hesitation acts as fuel for anxiety. Immediate, direct action is the only antidote. The third behavior relies on volume. The universe does not single you out for failure. If you attempt something enough times, success becomes a matter of statistical probability. This bar chart shows the probability distribution of 10 coin flips. The odds of tossing a coin 10 times and getting tails every single time are nearly 0. You cannot fail forever if you keep trying. This mathematical logic mirrors a parable of a squirrel dipping its tail in a lake, trying to sweep the water onto the land. The squirrel's physical strength was irrelevant. What mattered was the scale of its repetition. Warren Buffett applies this exact framework to his investing. He doesn't leap over 7-foot barriers. He looks for 1-foot hurdles he can step over, and he does it repeatedly. Monumental achievements are the high-volume accumulation of small, stubborn actions. To execute these actions, you need clarity. A master sculptor was once asked how he carved a perfect king out of a blank stone without a reference picture. He replied that he didn't need a picture. The image of the king was already clearly defined in his mind. But a vision means nothing without urgency. Consider the man offered all the gold he could carry from the king's treasury, provided he arrived before sunset. Believing he had time, he stopped to eat and nap, and eventually watched the palace doors swing shut, locking away his fortune. Procrastination often disguises itself as patience. Waiting for the perfect conditions to start guarantees that they will never arrive. You must also adjust your internal expectations. The Buddha taught that if you say, "I want happiness," you must first remove the I, which is ego, and then remove want, which is desire. What remains is the effort itself. You cannot control the circumstances of your birth, but staying in a state of defeat is a choice. If you refuse to surrender to the mud of the past, if you turn to face the phantoms of your fears, and if you stubbornly keep flipping the coin, you will live the rest of your life as a champion. Most of us live inside a very comfortable psychological bubble known as the non-consequences fallacy, the quiet, lingering belief that time is an infinite resource and that we can always start fixing our lives tomorrow. This fallacy lulls us into trading our prime years for the easiest possible hits of dopamine. We spend our nights swiping through endless feeds, waiting for a surge of motivation that the screen is designed to prevent. Engineers in Silicon Valley have spent decades turning your natural curiosity into a predictable revenue stream. They use specific notification loops and algorithms to ensure you stay in that trance, because every minute you spend waiting to start your life is a minute they can monetize. This creates a perpetual waiting room. Consider Abhinav. He is 34, talented, and has wanted to start a business for a decade, but he is stuck waiting for a perfect idea or a magical mentor to appear and tell him exactly what to do. If you want a completely different trajectory, you have to accept that no outside force is coming to rescue you. To move forward, you must take radical responsibility for the state of your life right now. When we look at the entire scope of our future, the sheer volume of work required can feel like an impossible, crushing weight. Imagine looking at every single dish you must wash over the next 18 years. That massive mountain of future labor would paralyze anyone. But life doesn't demand 18 years of effort at once. Focus exclusively on the single stack required for the next 24 hours. This same principle of radical presence appears in an ancient Buddhist parable. A follower went to fetch water from a pond, but returned empty-handed because the water was churned up with mud and silt, making it impossible to drink. The Buddha told him to simply sit by the water. He didn't tell him to filter the mud or fight the current. By remaining still and waiting, the follower watched as the mud settled to the bottom naturally, leaving the water clear. By isolating your focus to the present moment, whether through daily action or intentional stillness, the overwhelming mountain of the future loses its power over you. The mud in your life settles when you stop frantically stirring the pond. Action alone isn't a guarantee of success. It is surprisingly easy to spend years working incredibly hard on things that don't actually matter. Swami Vivekananda once encountered an ascetic monk who proudly claimed he had spent 15 years in the forest mastering a single skill, the ability to walk across the surface of a river. Vivekananda's response was immediate and blunt. He noted that any local ferryman could take a person across that same river for just 50 paise. The monk had sacrificed over a decade of his life to acquire a skill that solved no real-world problems. He had prioritized the ego-driven desire to look impressive over the practical need to be useful. Meaningful progress requires more than just sweat. It requires directing your energy towards actions that make practical sense for your goals, rather than seeking the validation of an audience. Many of us operate under the assumption that a significant failure is a definitive stop sign, a point of no return that proves we aren't cut out for our dreams. Long before he was a global icon, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam had one singular dream. He wanted to be a fighter pilot for the Indian Air Force. He did the work and sat for the interviews. There were 8 available slots for pilots. Kalam finished the selection process ranked 9th. Instead of viewing that 1-point margin as a permanent dead end, he pivoted his aerospace expertise towards rocketry. That shift eventually led him to lead the nation's missile program and ultimately to the presidency. It is a mindset similar to a squirrel, the Buddha once observed, repeatedly dipping its tail into a vast lake and shaking the water onto the shore. It was a seemingly illogical attempt to empty the lake to save its young, driven by a refusal to accept the odds. Failure is a data point, not an end point. True resilience is found in the refusal to let a single no stop your momentum, regardless of how catastrophic it feels in the moment. Building this kind of resilience requires a shift from passive observation to active confrontation. When Swami Vivekananda was once chased by a pack of aggressive monkeys, he instinctively tried to run away, but the faster he ran, the bolder the monkeys became. Only when he stopped, turned around, and faced them did the pack finally retreat. Fear and procrastination work the same way. They only have power as long as you are running from them. As this chart illustrates, identical starting points diverge based on the repetitive choices we make every morning. Over 30 years, the compounding effect of these daily habits creates 2 entirely different lives. When people reflect on their lives in their final years, they rarely regret the failures or the moments they looked foolish. They regret the risks they were too afraid to take and the time they spent waiting for the right moment. Stop waiting for a savior or a perfect plan. Face the things that scare you and begin the work of designing your own destiny today.